Hi, my name's Ariana and this is Limbo Darling. Today I'm gonna do another cooking video, and while I cook, I usually like to talk about some sort of media. The last time was movies, and this time I'm gonna be doing TV shows, so if that interests you, then stay tuned. Since it's spring, I wanted to do a nice tart with spring vegetables, so I'm using asparagus and radishes, or at least the radish part, not the leaves. I'm gonna leave the leaves for something later. And then I'm going to use this lovely bouquet of parsley. I'm going to use a base of pâte feuilletée, which I think is puff pastry in English. And then also goat cheese. I might add a few more dried herbs if I feel like it, but we'll see when I get to that part. So before I start talking about movies, I'm going to preset my oven, which is just behind me, to 180 degrees Celsius, or I think 350. And then I'm gonna put the pastry in the tin that I have, which I've already buttered. It's a great way to make sure that the tart doesn't then stick to the pan. So this comes already pre-rolled out, so it's easy to use and manipulate for these types of recipes. If your pastry doesn't, then just roll it out and put it into your pan. And then I'm just gonna press down into the pan, and I'm gonna leave the sides open for right now because I wanna lay them on top of the vegetables once I have them. And don't forget to fork it out. Okay, so next I'm gonna add my chèvre, and I'm gonna start talking about my first TV show. I've always been a fan of TV shows, but I feel like ever since my junior year of college, I've strayed away from them and have been focusing more on movies. I think mostly just because I didn't have access to them, or I didn't really have like easy access to good television. So it's been a delight the past month or so to kind of get back into it. My first TV show, and actually all of the TV shows I'm going to talk about today, came out in 2020. It's a miniseries, and it was by Hulu and BBC, Normal People. I think a lot of people have already watched it or watched it when it first came out, but since it's been a few years, actually I think almost 2 years at this point, I still want to talk about it just in case people didn't realize it came out when it came out, if they've read the book since then and kind of didn't know that there was a series, or just want a recommendation for the series, then I wanted to talk about it. As I said, it's originally a book by Sally Rooney. She also took part in writing the miniseries, and it follows the relationship of a boy and a girl from the western side of Ireland. The girl's super rich, but very unpopular in high school, and the guy's from a working class family, but very popular in the high school. They start a relationship that's kind of secret, kind of not as the show goes on. It's basically a will they won't they series, as it then follows them to college in Dublin and the lives they have there and how it's different from high school and the other relationships they have. Overall, it's such an interesting examination of that time period for late adolescence, early young adulthood, and how our relationships change, how we change as people. It's really powerful and really touching. With Daisy Edgar-Jones and Paul Mescal, who are absolutely fantastic in this series. They have so many monologues and just dialogue in between those two characters, but also with other characters too, and they are just very powerful actors and actresses, and they really get the nuances of what it is to be that age, but also to be those characters. I think a standout episode for me is personally the one where they go to Italy, just because it has like a very romantic summer Italian feel to it, so I'm a sucker for those types of things. But yeah, I mean, it's not an easy show to watch in some ways, because I mean, the subject matter isn't that tough, but it still can have its tougher moments or very emotional moments, but it's really, really good, and I think one of the best shows to come out of the past few years or COVID times. So I actually am gonna add some rosemary to this, just for the base, just a little bit. Okay, so now that the first layer is done, I now want to talk about my next TV show, which is also a BBC show, also came out in 2020, but it is I May Destroy You by Michaela Coel, who is also the lead actress and main character in the show. I think this one comes off with a very strong trigger warning because it deals with sexual assaults, the aftermath of it, and it can be fairly graphic, not violent per se, but if that's a subject that you just don't like to hear about, then I really don't recommend that you watch this show. But the way that they treat it is so nuanced. I don't mean in favor of the rapist, but just nuanced in the way that it is portrayed that you just don't really see with other television shows, especially that are coming out right now. It deals with many different types of physical abuse and assault and sexual assault, of course, specifically, but in a very mature and interesting way. It takes place in London around this time period, and I think all of the characters in the show are supposed to be about like 30, so it's not the usual college experience that I feel has popularized this type of, it's not a genre, but subject matter. So it's just an interesting take. Michaela Coel is so funny and lighthearted in a way that she's able to take a serious subject and not have it be bogged down by its seriousness, which I think, especially for a TV show and this type of TV show, is super important. So I highly recommend, even if you don't think you would necessarily want to watch that type of show, of course, because it is a heavy subject matter. Right now I'm cutting up the asparagus. I'm also going to cut up the radishes, and I'm going to add them to the tart. So I'm adding in the asparagus that I've already chopped up, and then once I'm done with that, I'm then going to add the radishes that I first need to cut, of course. It's not the most prettiest thing you've ever seen, but it will work. Okay, now on to the radishes. And on to my next show, which truthfully I haven't watched all of yet, but I just like it so much that I really want to talk about it. So I'm about halfway through the TV show High Fidelity, which is based off of the book by Nick Hornby and also the movie from 1999 with John Cusack. I've always really loved both the book and the movie, and so I was really excited when the series came out, especially since I really like Zoe Kravitz. Once again, another TV show that came out in 2020 at the beginning of confinement, and I wasn't able to watch it, so I'm so excited to now be able to watch it. And I must admit, it really holds up. So if you don't know the story, it's basically about a person, usually a guy, but in the new series it's a girl, who is broken up with, and it's about her kind of rebounding and finding life again after a breakup that they don't necessarily want to admit at first has really affected them. The TV show is kind of less faithful to the book. I mean, obviously in the sense that it's about a woman, but there's also other little differences that I think are kind of unexpected. The new series adds a bit of freshness and just a different type of style and vibe than the original book or movie do. It's very 2020 in a way, not in a COVID way, but in a millennial way, which of course didn't really exist in 1999 or 1996, which is when the book came out. But then there's random additions, like Zoe Kravitz's character Rob still uses a landline, even though she's not that much older than me. So she's very much a hipster in the cliched, I only do things that are from the past type of way. But it looks at the story in a very fresh way, and I really appreciate that, and I think that's why this series, at least so far, is able to stick out from the movie and the TV show. Because I've been kind of binging it, I have a feeling that I'll be done with it by the time that this is posted, so free feel to talk about it in the comments.
I did finish it and it was so good. Also, for some reason I completely forgot to mention it in this review, but also the style is amazing, and that's definitely one of the highlights of the show. The style is also good in Normal People and I May Destroy You, but once again, it does not have that late 2000s, early 2010s hipster, a little bit of punk style, but for the year 2020. I love it.
I'm just cutting up these radishes and I'm just putting them kind of randomly in the tart. I'm almost done. I'm definitely not going to use all of these, and I'll just save them as they're always nice to eat with lunch or just on the side as a snack. And the greens I'm actually going to use for pesto. I highly recommend doing it. It's so easy to make your own pesto and it tastes so much better and fresher. And radish greens are actually a great way, first of all, to use them up, but also a great addition to a pesto because it adds a nice kick. So I'm gonna keep these to the side and use these most likely tomorrow. So I'm done putting the radishes on, and I'm now going to flip the ends of the pie crust over so they also kind of envelope some of the asparagus and radish parts. And then this baby is going into the oven for about 30 minutes. But before I do that, a little bit of salt. And voila. Voila. As the tart is cooking, I've cleaned up a bit, and I took a few sprigs of parsley, destemmed them, washed them a bit, and I'm just going to cut them up very coarsely to add onto the tart once it's out of the oven and cooled down a bit. I feel like lately I've been adding parsley to a lot of different things. To be honest, I've never been a huge herb person, but I've realized recently how much it adds flavor to a dish, even something simple as scrambled eggs, and so I'm all for it and all for exploring it in 2022. Oh, and also something else to mention about High Fidelity is the music choice is so good. It is a story about a record store owner, so it makes sense that the music would be good, but it is especially good here. It has so many good, diverse artists who are both very popular but also more indie, and I've added so many songs to my Spotify, so even if you're just a music fan, I would highly, highly suggest the show just for that reason alone. The show also carries a certain sense of pretentiousness and nostalgia that I think was super popular with the hipster style of the late 2000s, early 2010s. And that also might be why I love this show, because I have a certain place in my heart for that time period and that style. But yeah, I think in terms of a remake, they do a good job of staying true to the story but still changing it and modernizing the script and changing the plot for it to be more unique and just a different outlook on how things could go. So the tart has now come out of the oven, It is nice and golden brown, and I've let it sit for about 10 minutes, and I'm now going to add the parsley on top and eat it. So just, sprinkle it around. It's not too complicated, and you're good. I like to usually pair my tarts or quiches with a nice side salad, a very simple salad like roquette or spinach, and a nice little vinaigrette too. This tart makes for a really nice, relaxing spring meal, and I hope you like it. So that's it to my very simple tart recipe and no spoiled TV show reviews. If you try out either the tart or any of the TV shows, or if you have thoughts about the TV shows already, then please let me know down below. And if you liked this video, please like and maybe subscribe. I'll see you soon. I'm gonna go and have a slice of tart. Bye!